Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Monday Night Football edition of the Big D Podcast. Before I bring in tonight's special guest, please subscribe, like, comment, and share the Swacky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. We've got some more Olympic videos coming out tomorrow, so I'm excited to share those. And hopefully, the Olympics will take place without any negative issues regarding COVID or any other things. So can't wait to show those tomorrow. So if you know me, you know I've been writing a few articles for Fake Pigskin. Well, lucky tonight, I've got the editor-in-chief of Fake Pigskin joining me from Sacramento, California, is my friend Kyle Robert. Kyle, it's football season. You know what that means.
It's time to talk some fantasy, Dylan. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on to chat it up.
Yeah, it's fantasy in July, and it's interesting because you and I have seen all kinds of all friends do like dynasty drafts and redrafts, and to be honest, what has been the main storyline you've seen in these dynasty or redraft leagues?
I mean, from a redraft perspective, it's running back feast, right? Everyone's excited about running backs again, and everybody thinks they need to get a couple within the first couple of rounds, and all of the ADP has them vaulting towards the top. I just finished my Scott Fishbowl draft. Obviously, quarterbacks are propped up a little bit in there, but after Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who I took at 102, there was a huge run on running backs with lots of names going, and we'll see kind of, which ones pan out and which ones end up leaving owners scratching their head come season's end.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I think of fantasy football leagues, the most important position that everybody says you need to get first is running back. It doesn't matter if you like in my league, the dude who got more running backs than anybody won because
Yeah.
simply he did not have to worry about the running back position for 17 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good discussion. I'm much more in the be patient at the position and lock in your studs and grab running backs. I like to grab on to a few, but I'm much more in the zero RB camp, or the modified zero RB. I don't know what everybody's calling it, but where you grab like one stud and then just wait and wait and wait and then add in as many as you can, because the thing we've learned is the injury rate at the position is absurd, and the ones you take high tend to have issues, and we're not exactly sure. So, some people lean, oh well, I need to take a couple, and some people lean, I'm going to avoid it at all costs, and it's usually a mixed bag. So I won a championship last year starting Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and ended up cobbling together my running back core in the middle rounds. So, there's a few different ways to approach it, but at the end of the day, you do need to have the talented ones for sure.
Yeah, be honest with you. Last year, I think I got like the sixth or seventh pick in the draft. CMC, Saquon, Kamara, and Zeke, I believe, all gone. Maybe Dalvin Cook was still on the board, but Michael Thomas and Julio Jones were my first two picks because I went best
Love it.
player available, and literally, I got nothing out of either one of
Yeah.
those guys
But
last
in
year.
most years, that works out, right? Most years, Michael Thomas, like the two previous years, Michael Thomas was top one or two option a receiver, and Julio was usually a 1,500 yard. Obviously the touchdowns aren't always there, but lots of catches, lots of yards. Over on Fantasy Pros ADP, the first eight picks are all running backs: McCaffrey, Dalvin, Henry, Alvin Kamara, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Zeke, and Nick Chubb. The first non-quarterback or non-running back goes ninth at Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and then they hit Aaron Jones. So what's that? Eight of your first, or nine of your first 11 picks are all running backs.
When do the quarterbacks start coming off the board?
I mean, each league's gonna be a little different. Mahomes, I think, is his own animal. My guess is, right now on Fantasy Pros ADP, he's 20th. But I'd say the second round, end of the second, maybe early third is a reasonable range, and then QB2 doesn't come off the board until almost the fourth, end of the third, early fourth with Josh Allen. So, and then you obviously drop, which I think makes a lot of sense. Like there should be a sizable gap between what Mahomes can be and what the rest of the position provides.
Uh, is there a position that's potentially overvalued and potentially one that undervalued? Because if you look at it, may depend on who you take, but tight end which would be that position because there are so few quality
Yeah, so
tight
for
ends.
me, Travis Kelce is worthy of a first round pick, and I think he hit as dominant as he can be. He's very much somebody that I'm targeting in as many drafts as I can get. Like I mentioned in Scott Fishbowl, that's super flex, tight end premium. I took Kelce at 102, so I'm huge on him. I also think George Kittle and Darren Waller are difference makers at the position. Would happily take them round 2, round 3 range. Beyond those three, I think I'm very comfortable waiting. I don't think there's I like Mark Andrews, I like TJ Hawkinson, but for me, it's the value. There's a big drop off from where Kittle and Kelce and Darren Waller are. I think running backs overvalued. That's kind of my general stance. Like obviously, players like Derrick Henry are incredible, and if I have a top 3 or 4 pick in most leagues, I'm probably going to grab either Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook. I don't know that I love Saquon. Jonathan Taylor, somebody I've become a lot more excited about, but beyond those first couple picks, I'm very happy to wait. I'm especially like as you mentioned with if you're looking, kind of 9, 10, 11, kind of that turn area, I'd much rather double tap wide receivers, grab Tyreek Hill and Devonta Adams, or Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs, and be on my way and grab. There's lots of running backs in that round 4, 5, 6 range that I'd be very happy to have on my squad.
Yeah, so here's an interesting question. If you've got the number 2 or 3 pick in your league, assuming Christian McCaffrey goes number 1, who would you take number 2 and who would you take number 3?
I take Derrick Henry number 1. He's my number 1 overall player.
Hmm,
I'm
Even
a
in a
Titans fan,
even
but
wait a
if
minute, wait a minute.
yeah,
Wait a minute. Titans fan and now you're going to take the whole now
yeah,
you're
but if you've followed me, and I was the king of Derrick Henry. Actually, isn't very good at football. But he is such a difference maker, even though he doesn't really catch the passes, and that's definitely concerning. But I would much rather take Derrick Henry number 1. Right now, my top 3 would be Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. If you took any of those guys 101, I wouldn't fault you. But if I was on the clock, Derrick Henry is the pick for me.
would it matter if it's what even in a PPR league?
Even in PPR league, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's that big of a difference maker. Even in PPR, I can look up the points scored from last year, but I think he was a top 2 or 3 player in all formats last year. So I mean, I expect, whatever you want to say. I'm a Titans fan, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But he was a guy. This is an offense that I expect to be even more potent with Julio Jones in the fold. I expect Derrick Henry to maybe not get quite as many touches, but to be in much better position to be productive with those touches, have more red zone touches, have more chances to score touchdowns. Um, yeah, so Derrick Henry in half was the number 2 running back behind Kamara and number 3 in full PPR. So and then they're obviously number 1 in standard. So I'll lock in that volume. I'll lock in those touchdowns because that's the thing I want for my running back, right? I want a guy who I feel is going to be on the field for 16 games, who's going to have plenty of red zone touches and is just going to see that workload each and every week. Kamara was great, and he had obviously monster games, but he also had games when the Saints offense wasn't working very well, that he wasn't super productive, and you were kind of frustrated with him in your roster. So, I like Henry. He's my number one player and my number one running back for 2021.
Interesting. So, I mean, you've got a lot of valid points because it seemed like every week Derrick Henry was running for 100 yards. It didn't matter if they put 10 minutes in the
Yep.
box. I mean,
Yep.
don't remind me being a Jags fan, but it seems like every game Derrick Henry plays against us, he's scored.
Yeah.
He's run like 80 yards.
Thursday night football versus the Jaguars. I feel like he's going to score a 99-yard rushing touchdown every game.
Oh, good grief! Don't remind me. Don't remind me of those mustard yellow uniforms.
Oh, those are terrible. Why would you guys break
Oh,
those out?
your uniforms weren't any better.
I think they're a little
I
bit
mean,
better
they're
than the
better.
must.
I mean, blue's easier to run. I mean, well,
Yeah.
I will
For
say this: we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. What an old school uniforms.
Yeah, yeah, and the Packers with the Acme, but yeah, no, it's gonna be fun games for sure.
Yeah, especially now with the quarterbacks in play. So, one of the most exciting players I'm looking forward to seeing is Kyle Pitts. So, are you are you undervaluing him, or you maybe or fantasy owners maybe overvaluing him this year? Because with Julio and Nashville, as you know, it's basically Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, and everybody else in Atlanta. So, what's your view on Pitts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for upside at the position. He has the very real possibility of being in that George Kittle, Darren Waller, group where they're seeing so much volume that it's going to be hard for him to not be super productive. I guess my question is, how are they deploying him? Are they going to run him as more of an inline blocker? That's not really what he's more of a vertical threat, more of a big wide receiver. I still think Hayden Hurst is going to be involved. And I think, if you're being really patient, the position can be a nice value. I guess my problem with Pitts is less about where he's going among tight ends and more about where he's going kind of overall. It's going to be really hard to kind of get to him, where he would be coming off the board. And I'm just looking over. So right now he's tight end 6 coming off the board per Fantasy Pros. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's not in a terrible range. Like, would you rather have DJ Moore, Kenny Galladay, Deontay Johnson at receiver, if you need a receiver there, or would you rather just lock in Kyle Pitts? Odell goes right after him. Ayuk, Claypool. There's some interesting wide receiver names, but the difference between Kyle Pitts and, say, the rest of the tight ends, Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert. I think there's enough of a difference to justify that. I guess I'm just wondering if you're in some leagues that I've been drafting in, especially like I'm doing a lot of best balls over an underdog. I feel like his ADP is closer to like the 40s rather than the 60s. And you're talking like 4th, 5th round instead of 6th, 7th round. So yeah, for me, it depends. Like, if he's sitting there in that range and I'm happy with my team, I'm very happy taking him there. But if it's going to be a 4th round ADP instead of a 6th round ADP, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get there.
Who is one player you're looking to get in as many drafts as possible?
It's a great question. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit before, but Jalen Hurts is somebody from a fantasy perspective that I'm finding myself gravitating towards early and often. Very excited about his potential. Very excited to see what he can be with a full season, with playmakers, adding Devonta Smith, adding Dallas Goedert. I'm team Miles Sanders, so I'm curious to see with the new coaching staff what that offense looks like. I have a little concern just because The guy coming in is from the Doug Peterson coaching tree, and that worries me that they're going to, kind of use too many running backs. But I'm excited to see this offense. Now, there's talk, and we'll see what it actually means. I think it's just more of a offseason thing. But if the Deshaun Watson stuff is all cleared up and he's eligible for Week 1, supposedly Philadelphia is one of the teams that would be willing to, offer up the farm to go get him. Now, I assume in that scenario, Jalen Hurts is headed to Houston, presumably the Week 1 starter. They have plenty of weapons. I'm not super worried. Like, obviously, I'd rather have Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins there, but Brandon Cooks is another guy that at his ADP I absolutely love. But Jalen Hurts, I think has top 5 upside at the quarterback position.
I'm not near as sold on US on
Yeah, and
this
honestly,
year.
from a
Partly because Hurts was more of a runner, and true in dynasty leagues of running quarterbacks not a bad thing. I mean, Lamar Jackson won an MVP based on his legs.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for fantasy purposes, I tend to gravitate towards running back or quarterbacks that can run because it gives you that safe floor each and every week. Like and the NFL is kind of garnering that way. I mean, Mahomes is a runner, Andrew Luck was a runner, Aaron Rodgers can run a little bit.
Kyle,
Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill is a runner. The
Kyler,
days of the true drop back passer, I think is kind of going with the aging options.
yeah, in a way. I mean, you look at the kids who were drafted in the first round. I mean, Trevor Lawrence can run, Zach Wilson. Who's the
Justin Fields might actually be the worst runner of the trio. And then
that's it.
obviously Mac Jones is just,
Well, I
he
don't
doesn't
think
move at all, but yeah, Fields, Lawrence might be one of the best athletes at the quarterback position. And I don't think people, as we're heading into drafts are valuing his running ability as much as they probably should.
Hey, I remember a long touchdown run against Ohio State in the
Yeah, me
Fiesta
too.
Bowl.
You see, this is what happens when I bring up Derrick Henry's touchdown. You find ways to get back at me with the Ohio State defense or lack thereof. But yeah, no, Trevor Lawrence is very legit with his legs and could be a big help in kind of keeping him afloat most weeks. Even if his arm is not, he's not making the passes, it's not working right. He's having connection issues. He can still use those legs and produce a ton of fantasy points.
Yeah, so now the interesting question is, mine is Corey Davis, but you bring in a future Hall of Famer, Julio Jones. Yeah, everybody's going to be worried about Tennessee's defense. Cross your fingers, it's halfway decent this year. Cross your fingers, Tannehill's no fluke without his ex-offensive coordinator. Cross your fingers that Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry in a 17-game season. Can Tennessee challenge Indianapolis in the AFC South? Because you and I both know the Texans might be the worst team in the league. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jackson's got Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer, but will a couple years from contending, can the Titans repeat as division champs?
100%, 100%. This is the most excited I've been about a Titans team since maybe early 2000s. Adding Bud Dupree on the defense is a huge get. The offensive line has to stay healthy. Luan has to be on the field for 16 games. Losing Roger Saffold at points last year was huge. Was a huge blow for us. But I think the Titans are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And not only can they come out of their division, but they can come out of the AFC and they could be hoisting the Lombardi come season's end.
Interesting. I have not heard anybody say Tennessee is a Super Bowl team, but I would not want to play Tennessee in the playoffs.
Yeah, and
Good luck.
honestly, I'm excited about what the Colts are going to be. I think both these teams could be 12 or 13 game winners that are legit factors in the AFC. I think getting Carson Wentz, if Doug or Frank Reich can get him where he was in the first couple of years of his career, you might be looking at a guy who all of a sudden is like a dark horse MVP candidate and takes that Colts team to the Super Bowl. But I'm 100% on board. Like, I'm pulling up DraftKings right now to see Super Bowl odds, but the Titans right now are 28-1 over at DraftKings Sportsbook. I'd be happy to do that. Them and the Colts are both 28, which I think makes a lot of sense. They're in that tier right behind the Packers, the Saints, the Seahawks. Probably a little undervalued from a betting perspective, just because they're probably not going to get a ton of money. Being those teams, like, just people aren't lining up to bet those teams, but I think they both provide a nice value for the season.
Yeah, looking at the Titans schedule right now. I mean, you start with Arizona week 1. How about an away trip to Seattle? You're going to be putting on some miles, but I mean, that Indianapolis game, week 3, is going to be so important, divisional game, and then you get Buffalo, Kansas City, at Indianapolis, at LA, and New Orleans in a 5-week stretch, middle of October to middle of November.
Yeah.
That's going to be that'll be a grind.
Yeah, week 6 to week 10 is going to be, is this team legit? Are they a Super Bowl contender, or are they just playoff team that will get bounced in the first or second round? But I think they can do enough. Like, I mean, their schedule is tough. Having to play the NFC West is tough. Seattle, the Rams are a team that people like. The Niners, if they're healthy at that point, we'll see. Obviously playing Kansas City, the team that's been the Super Bowl representative for the conference the past 2 years, 2 games against the Colts, who could be a 12-win team. We'll see what New Orleans is, whether it's Jameis or Taysom, or, we might be looking in week 10 as a team that, is actually not as good as we thought it might be. Playing in division is never easy. So a couple games with Jacksonville. The Texans really love to push our buttons. We like to play about 3.5 quarters, let them think that the game's over, and then they put up 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they're back in it, and we're sweating out games. So that's always fun. At Pittsburgh's never easy, week 15. So, and then the Dolphins. The Dolphins are another team that won, double-digit games last year. Could easily be a playoff team this year with Tua takes another step forward. It's definitely like there's a path where the Titans are actually a better team, but their record is worse and they don't make it as far, based on that schedule.
What is Tennessee's most underrated game this year?
Like what game could be sneaky tough and actually,
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I think the games with the Jags could be interesting, because I think the biggest problem for the Titans defense the past couple of years has been that secondary. And if Trevor Lawrence is good from the jump, and I love the Jaguars pass core for the season from a fantasy perspective, from a real life perspective. If LaVisca and Marvin Jones and DJ Chark are challenging our corners, pushing down the field, those could be some games where we're struggling to, obviously I love our offense, but those could be some games that really push our defense, and all of a sudden they're 35-31 instead of, the Titans kind of dominating like they probably should in Trevor Lawrence's first year.
Especially with Derrick Henry as the main focal point of your offense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I adding Julio Jones, I'm optimistic that changes a little bit, and kind of put a little more on Ryan Tannehill's shoulders, because he's proven that he's able. He's got plenty of targets, and if you look at his numbers, he in terms of efficiency, in terms of what he's done since he's been in Tennessee, he's right there with the best in the league, with Aaron Rodgers, with Patrick Mahomes, with Russell Wilson, and probably doesn't get quite the credit he deserves. But I would like to see him have more opportunities to use his arms and to use his legs. and let Henry not be so, so by that way, by week 15, 16, 17, with the extra week 18 into the playoffs, he's not exhausted, because there's going to be games, if we get in the playoffs, we're facing Kansas City, we're facing Baltimore, we're going to have to throw, and we're going to have to put up points, and not letting Tannehill do that early is going to be problematic for the league.
I think if Tennessee's defense is somewhat compatible this year, I think you've got more than capable offense of winning 10, 11 games. The problem is, Indy, and be honest, Indy and Tennessee are almost mirror images. You got similar quarterbacks, similar beast running backs. Maybe Tennessee's offense a little more explosive. Of course, Indy's got a better offensive line, probably a little better defense, but you've all won that. But it's funny, like Tennessee and Indy always beat each other on the road. Why is that? Like
I don't
the
know.
Titans win in Indy, and
It's been like that since Peyton Manning and Steve McNair were there. It was those two teams have always seemingly been good together and bad together, and even in years where one's bad and one's good, they pop up and have really interesting games and really competitive games, and it's always been something that I've never been excited about. I'm always stressed heading into a game with the Colts because they always push us, and they always make things interesting, or they just kick the crap out of us on Thursday Night Football and make us look silly. And but yeah, I mean the Colts are very, very good, and I think both these teams are going to be challenging each other all season long to not only win the division, but potentially push in the AFC and go play the Colts.
Yeah, you imagine if it's Kansas City, Tennessee for another AFC championship.
That game crushed me. We had that game, and Patrick Mahomes is just so dang good. It reminded me of when we play the Colts in prime Manning years, and I thought, oh, this is our year, this is our chance, and Peyton Manning with 350 yards, Marvin Harrison, Dallas Clark, and the game's over, and I'm like, what just happened? Yeah, so I'm optimistic we can get back there. I'm optimistic that we can go toe to toe with Kansas City, but Patrick Mahomes is incredible. That Chiefs offense is incredible, and it's going to take a lot for any team to beat them, let alone the Titans.
Yeah. So I can't wait to see this year, and I can't wait to see the 2 games with your Titans and my Jags. We might need to have a friendly wager for that game.
Down, so down.
Trying to say it might not be money related. It might be.
No, we can do like a Twitter avatar, or there's all kinds of stuff you can do. It's really fun.
I think we should do something fitness related.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I've got a bike in my house. Almost at Chris and I bet on the Islanders Bolts East semifinal round. The loser got to do fitness. He with the Bolts win, he got to do an hour run/walk. If the Islanders would have won, I would have done an hour cycling class.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you would have gotten out ahead on that one. I'd much rather ride my bike for an hour than run and walk. But
be honest, I've done 24 5Ks. They're not that bad. Just need the train. So thank you for hopping on, Kyle, and can't wait for football season to start. It's just around the corner. I think, Troy, the Cowboys training camp starts, this week?
Yeah, this week or next, and then we'll have Hard Knocks on HBO, and
oh boy,
it's all happening. It's all happening. Mini camp. We have mini camps this year. We have training camp. We have the whole rigmarole. So I'm incredibly excited. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll have to talk again soon.
Oh yeah, can't wait for football season, and maybe Trevor Lawrence and Ryan Tannehill finish 1-2 in passing. How about them apples?
I'd be good with that. As long as Tannehill's number one, that's all I care about.
Derrick Henry might not like that, but who wouldn't?
Yeah, but if we're hoisting the Lombardi, I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
He's got his 2,000-yard season. I'm happy with that.
Doesn't he have multiple 2,000-yard seasons?
No, I think it's just um him and Chris Johnson. Let's see here. The old Google machine can tell us. Yeah, so Derrick Henry did it last year. Peterson, Chris Johnson, Jamal Lewis, Terrell Davis, Barry Sanders, Eric Dickerson, and OJ. OJ did it in 14 games, which is insane. But yeah, there's 8 players that have ever had a 2,000-yard plus season, and Henry added his name to the list last year.
And he almost didn't win that game against the Texans. If not for Deshaun putting on his Superman cape.
That game gave me at least 3 or 4 heart attacks. I don't know how I survived it.
I don't know how anybody would have survived it. You imagine somebody put a tight end Texan stack on DK or
Yeah.
they would have won.
You won all the money that week in DraftKings for sure.
So thanks for hopping on, Kyle, and we'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, Dylan. Take care.